and welcome to another episode of AATBirds Weekly Report. I am your host, Johnny Uleka, and I am joined by my other host, Michael Bauer at Rewind CEO. Going to talk a little Eagles roster outlook. The draft is coming on. They've had their undrafted free agents. There's some holes, of course, that need to be filled on this team. We're going to kind of get into possibilities, what we can possibly see. It's going to be basically secondary centric, secondary focused, just because that's one of the biggest holes on the team. We can mention other stuff if we want, but we're going to get into that. There's Eagles did make a move. Scouting wise, they made a little bit of a shakeup and also a roster move as well. Veteran being waived, but Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Good. How are you, Johnny?
Oh, I'm wonderful. It's always nice to talk some birds, talk some Eagles.
It is. Can I just say a few things that surprised me that didn't happen with
Go
our
ahead.
draft or just moves?
Thanks for joining, Tyler.
What's that?
Said thanks for joining, Tyler.
Oh, hey Tyler, how you doing, man? I'm surprised that we did not draft a defensive end. I know that they picked one up over as a UDFA. I'm surprised we did not draft a running back. And I'm also surprised that Gardner Minshew and Andre Dillard are still on the team.
That is surprising. Now, you were not on the draft breakdown show on Sunday, not. So I want to get your feel on the draft. We'll do that first. We'll get your feel on the draft, and then we'll get into a little bit of the roster outlook and what we have. Yep, definitely corner safety holes. We will definitely address those, Tyler. So stay tuned.
For sure.
Adam, of course, he's getting a little overzealous here.
In all fairness, every NFL team does send representatives to the Super Bowl, so technically, we are Super Bowl bound every year.
You are right. You are right on that one.
I love being technically correct.
I'll give you that one. But yeah, what was your thoughts on the draft?
I mean, of course, I wanted the Eagles to draft Kenny Pickett. That's been well documented, but I kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. I mean, they took Jordan Davis with their first overall pick, and I love it. I mean, then of course right away it's like, oh, he's not a big sack guy. I don't think they're going to ask him to do that. You think about it, you have him clogging things up and freeing up Hargraves. I'm okay with that. The guy's so massive too. And look, Howie has struggled at drafting wide receivers. So he went and traded for A.J. Brown, one of the best receivers in the game. Completely fine with that. What's up, Adam?
What's up, Adam?
And they traded their first and a third for A.J. Brown. Like, they stole him. They stole him. The Cam Jurgens pick was boring. Interior lineman in the second round. But apparently this guy was handpicked by Kelsey. So, okay. Nakobe Dean in the third. Yeah. All of a sudden we have linebackers. It's freaking weird. And then the Grant Calcaterra pick in the, I think, fifth round. Right now, I'm looking at the depth chart. He is the fourth tight end on the roster, which is going to change before long. He will be the backup tight end to start the season. And then, they filled it out with some other guys. The dude, what? Kyron Johnson from Kansas. I like that pick a lot.
Yeah.
In the sixth round, like if he's a good teams guy and he fills in on a couple snaps here and there, I think he has a better motor than Sean Bradley.
Yeah. The other thing you have to look at it, and it was mentioned today about them possibly going more to a 3-4 centric type of. I know defenses are more hybrid in terms of you don't really they're the 4-3s and the 3-4s, and they're not real used. Basically, you don't play base defense. You play nickel or dime depending on how the teams come out. But again, if they're doing that, it makes a lot of sense. And I mentioned it to you about this offseason. They signed Renell Wren, who's a 6'6", 315-pound and in a 3-4 defensive tackle. You have the size there. You have Jordan Davis, 6'6", 340. You sign undrafted free agent Noah Ellis, 6'4", 349. You have Kyron Johnson, that outside linebacker, that backer. You watched him in Senior Bowl practice. And then they got, as the Brown quarterback, E.J. Perry decided to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, they signed Alid Fayyad, who's Western Michigan outside linebacker, 28 career sacks, 53 tackles for loss for Western Michigan. And he played that outside backer, 6'2", 250 pounds. So you can see a little bit of the transitioning when you're looking at some of the pieces that they're picking up. Hassan Reddick, when it comes to mind, that was their, day one of free agency. That's who they picked up. And you can see them kind of going a little bit off from a traditional 4-3, but maybe them playing a 5-2, playing a little bit of a 3-4. It gives Gannon the options that he did not have last year.
This is true. Our linebacking core is better. Our defensive line is improved. Our secondary is still, I actually think our secondary is slightly worse now than it was then. But I like some of the UDFAs they picked up. Kennedy Brooks, I scouted Kennedy Brooks. He's kind of blah. But whatever.
Yeah, but you have to kind of give him
solid.
Would you say it's Kennedy Brooks is almost like the a cheaper Jordan Howard fill-in?
Yeah.
He just, he's a bigger guy. He's not going to wow you at speed. He's not going to be super elusive. He's just going to.
Yeah, there was just other guys that if you're going to pick up a guy like that, I would have probably rather had them take a shot on, like Letty Brown from West Virginia, Jalen Warren from Oklahoma State, guys that are big and solid, but are more explosive than a guy like Kennedy Brooks. That being said, as a UDFA, you cut him, you find another UDFA, you re-sign Jordan Howard. Yeah. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Like if he was a 4th round draft pick, I'd be a little more upset about it. Like if he was a Donnell Pumphrey.
Yeah.
But he's not. Again, a UDFA. So if he works out and he gives you anything at all ever, it's a win.
Yeah. So Adam has this question here. He goes, do you think Gannon will have a different style of defense to help the players he has now?
He has to, or he does not have a job. Because I can guarantee they will not allow to have a defense like this for 2 years in a row.
No.
There's no, you know what? Just like there's no excuses for Jalen Hurts this year, there's no excuses for Jonathan Gannon either.
And, Tyler was saying, the thought of Kaiser White and Nakobe Dean, you got to like it. But you also have to remember, too, if he's healthy, Davion Taylor's there as well, who's also faster linebacker, has the speed. And he started to show a little bit last year. So, that's a little bit of a tantalizing option that you're looking at. These linebackers, and you mentioned it, we have linebackers, and it's really nice to be able, you're not throwing out the practice squad linebackers, you're not throwing out the Alex Singletons and, hoping that these guys, these veterans, these Eric Wilsons that you're picking up and everything are going to show out and be good contributors for you. Here we go.
I have a question for you. Middle of the summer, it gets boring.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do a linebackers podcast where we talk about all the linebackers we've had since the Andy Reid era started?
Oh my God. Yeah.
It would be.
No, I like that idea. I like that idea because there's a lot of names that people don't think about or don't remember. And
on purpose.
on purpose. Yeah, on purpose. But there's a couple names. When you said that, a couple names popped into my head, and definitely something we could do, because that honestly could take up a whole show, because I'm sure certain names have certain memories tied to it that'll then lead to some conversation. So
for sure.
I like that. That's a very good show in the back of our pockets there. So definitely something that we can definitely do. But looking at this roster, you see the secondary is a big a mystery. It is because you have Avonte Maddox and you have Darius Slay. We know we have in those two players. Anthony Harris struggled last year. He is a veteran back there. Marcus Epps played well, but again, you lost Rodney McLeod, you lost Steven Nelson. You have a lot of younger guys there. The other thing you have to look at is they did get a couple UDFAs who had draftable grades. They gave them a lot of money to. They gave $217,000 to Mario Goodrich, which is pretty surprising, guaranteed. So you gave him a lot of money. Josh Jobe, they gave him some money. And then they had Reed Blankenship, who's a safety that they added, and Josh Blackwell, a corner out of Duke, more of a slot corner.
Never had an interception, I believe.
Yeah,
I heard.
that's not the best. But again, of course, Job and Goodrich are the two bigger names because the colleges that they went to, and Goodrich played a lot last year. I thought, watching Goodrich play, I think Andrew Booth was the best corner on Clemson, but I feel like Goodrich, there were some games that Goodrich stood out more than Booth. And with Josh Job struggled. I feel, in my opinion, safety may be the best position for Job, then corner.
Why
But
not?
again, this
Good
is where
work.
they can do this. So, because they have the opportunity with the players that they have on the roster. You have the Kerry Vincents, the Tay Gowans, the Mac McCains. Really, you have a bunch of darts and you throw them at the board and you hope one or two of them stick. Because what I did was, after the draft, and I know they didn't go corner and safety, which was surprising, but again, when you have 5
I was
picks,
surprised too.
you don't have that many opportunities. And you're looking at other rosters and depth charts with teams who did draft players, and you're looking at those rosters and you're saying, well, where could possibly be a trade bait or a cut candidate that you could possibly sign? And you look at that, and then you go to the free agency market and you see what veterans are out there. Bryce Callahan signed with the Chargers, which adds to their loaded defensive backfield.
Dude, you have to be loaded defensively to play in the AFC West right now, man.
You're correct.
You got to be.
My question is, if Darius Slay or Avonte Maddox gets injured,
Oh, we're screwed.
You'd want to be in my opinion, I would like to sign a veteran who gets cut or trade for a veteran, and then also add, a lower cost veteran as like a fourth option, knowing that they probably won't do that. They'll maybe just add one possible player. I don't know what they're going to do safety wise. Honestly, in my opinion, you lose Rodney McLeod. I think you need to add somebody of Rodney McLeod's caliber, because Marcus Epps played well last year. But again, he played well as a rotational guy in there.
Exactly.
I think that's his role that he fits great at, because he can do a couple things with stopping the run and his tackling and certain things that he can do. But for having him as a guy that's going to play you a majority of the game, that's where I know they have high hopes with him. I know they like him a lot, but Anthony Harris didn't play well last year. Behind him, you have Jared Maiden, Andre Chachere, and you have Kayvon Wallace. Again, an injury in that aspect of for a Marcus Epps or an Anthony Harris injury then puts you in the position of players who, may turn out to be decent players, but again, when there's available players out on the market that can give you solid work or solid play, and you're going with guys on the lower end of your roster, that's where it gets me a little bit concerned.
So my whole thing is too, like, do they believe in McPherson enough to say, hey, it's your time? I mean, everyone's like, oh, McPherson's small. I don't know where they're hearing that from. He's 5'11". He's an inch shorter than Darius Slay. You can play cornerback in the NFL at 5'11". We've seen smaller guys be outside corners. But you can't have Avonte Maddox being an outside corner. He is a nickelback. That is where he belongs. But it's concerning because you're right. Behind these guys, let's look at these. We'll say the unknown players. Yeah. Okay, Craig James, Jared Maben, Josh Jobe, Reed Blankenship, Josh Blackwell, Marcus Epps. I'm only saying that because our lads has Kayvon Wallace as a starter, Andre Chachere, Tay Gowan, Josiah Scott, Mac McCain, Kerry Vincent, and Mario Goodrich. What is the likelihood? Okay, a lot of these guys were acquired relatively cheaply within the last year or so, or some sort of offseason signing, or UDFAs. If we get anything out of these guys, anything serviceable from one or two of these guys, it's a win.
Mm-hmm.
It is. But it's also a really, really risky, really, really risky decision to make. I can't say I like it. That being said, it is May 4th. And
Mhm.
Ronald Darby was a training camp trade, I believe.
Yeah, I think
So,
actually it was in towards the end of training camp. It was
yeah.
August.
Yeah, and then he got hurt right away, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. But I really actually wanted them to re-sign Rasul Douglas, and I know that sounds crazy, but he would have been. You can't tell me that you really want any of these guys right now over Rasul Douglas.
So
I don't personally.
this brings me to the players who are available. So these are the free agents who are available. There's a safety on here, and there's also some corners.
Let's
So
do it up.
to run it down, Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander, Fabian Moreau, Tayshawn Gibson, and Kevin King. So one by one here. So Trey Waynes is 30 years old, 6 foot, 190, but he's missed 28 games the last 2 years. He
Wolf.
has the skill set. He knows the system. Uh, played under Zimmer defense, so he knows he's got the size, everything. The problem is he can't stay on the field,
He's
and
30.
he's 30. So
Mm.
again, that's concerning there. Now, Mackenzie Alexander, 28 years old, 5'10, 192, can play a slot and outside. I think he's more of a slot corner. That's just, I think he fits best, which I don't think you're signing a slot corner because you have Avonte Maddox. So you're not going to be signing. And you also have just Josiah Scott's also, he's not an outside guy. He's the backup slot corner right now to Avonte Maddox.
Confirmed.
He's only 5'9", so again, that fits how his stature is and what fits him best. Corner Fabian Moreau, former Washington football team player, played with Atlanta last year. 28 years old, 6 foot, 204. Started all 16 games for Atlanta last year. He's on the field. He's there. I know they liked him pre-draft. He'd be a guy I wouldn't mind signing and being your fourth guy or your third outside guy after you get a second outside guy. I know Zach McPherson was drafted in the 4th round, but I honestly, the way the NFL is, you're gonna accumulate injuries. It just happens. Eagles were lucky last year, but again, it doesn't hurt to have veterans on your roster. And he can play special teams. So next one, Tayshawn Gibson, 32 years old. He's a safety, 6'1", 207, veteran presence, and he does have versatility. So he can come down, cover, can play in the box, he can do a number of things, and he has the size. He's not a small guy, but he's also older. He's 32. But he
the same as Rodney McLeod then, essentially.
exactly same as Rodney McLeod.
Yeah.
And then last, cornerback Kevin King, 27 years old. He's the youngest out of the group, the biggest out of the group, 6'3", 200 pounds, big corner, but he's missed 23 games the last 4 years. He's got a very extensive injury history.
So you're averaging almost 6 games a year that you're missing.
Yeah. So
that's pretty big.
That's, to me, the one that makes the most sense. Kevin King would make the most sense, but when you look at the injuries and you look at everything, and I know I heard it earlier in the offseason, they wanted to stay away from guys who are always injured. They wanted to get away from that. So right there in my eyes, Kevin King and Trey Waynes, they're out. So it's between Mackenzie Alexander, Fabian Moreau, and Gibson. My opinion, I would add Fabian Moreau as your fourth, and I just mentioned it, but that would be my opinion. I like him. I feel like he could step in and give you solid reps. He played all 16 games, started all 16 games last year for Atlanta. So it's not like he doesn't start ever. He has started with Washington and he started with Atlanta. So he has that in his back pocket. It comes down to cost at that point.
Yeah, I don't hate it. And he's a guy, look, and if you want to say, like, if you can't find someone else, you want to bring this guy in, give McPherson a shot. And if he falters, then you got this guy to fall back on. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know how he's working on it. I'm by no means a Howie truther. I have been critical of him. He's deserved criticism. Let's be real on that, though. But I'll tell you what, these last couple off seasons, He's done some work. He really has.
Yeah.
He's had to, because the roster was in shambles because of him, to be fair.
Yeah.
So
I'll give him, you got to give him credit on two aspects of roster building. The first one was in 2016 after Chip Kelly left this team in pretty much shambles with the contracts he left them with, the players he left them with, and how he got out of that, turned it into 2017, turned it into a Super Bowl. You got to give him credit for that. Then you got to be able to, punt him down, pat him down a little bit and say, it wasn't very good, a couple of the drafts that you had. The 2017 draft was not very good.
it was not.
And then you're looking at the 2019 draft, the 2018 draft. You have to look at some of the drafts that weren't very good. 2019 was a good draft. 2018, not so much. So you look at those, and then you look into 2020, what he did there, 2021, and then this draft. So, and the acquisitions, because we all clamored for a veteran receiver, sign Allen Robinson, get Robert Woods. You almost had Calvin Ridley. But if he does any of those moves, there is no A.J. Brown.
It's true.
So that's where you want him to sign a corner. You want him to get a corner. I'll say it right now. I will be a little bit laxed on this, and I'll say I'll wait, and I'll let Howie work.
Yeah.
Now, this brings me to the next list. None of these are, one of them is a rumor to be let go. The others are just pure speculation on my end, looking at depth charts, looking at crowded depth charts, and seeing where a player could possibly be, maybe traded, maybe cut. So we'll go into that one. And
well, I know who you want.
Well, there's a couple of players that I want, but a couple of them I thought about it, and I kind of rethinking the decision of putting him on the list, and I'll get into why that is.
Okay.
But the first guy, James Bradberry, we're hearing the rumors. Apparently, by the end of this week, he's supposed to be let go. Save the Giants, $10 million. They need money. They also have very thin secondary as well, so they may use that money to get a couple of veterans to add to their roster. But if you take a look at them on their depth chart, just take a look at their secondary and see how thin theirs is, especially if they let Bradberry go.
Man, they had a good draft, but they're still going to be a bad team.
Yeah, which is totally fine.
Yeah. And also, hats off to the New York Jets. You guys killed the draft, man. Congrats. That's a team I cheer for, except for when we play them once every 4 years.
Exactly. And also in every preseason. But again, we don't root in the preseason. It's just evaluation.
It's good to have football back. That's all.
Exactly. That's why I watch preseason, because football's back, and I can just watch the young players and see if anyone pops off the screen. We've seen it before. Henry Josie, Paul Turner. We all know.
Don't do this to me. Come on.
Take you down that rabbit hole.
Turner.
Chuck Clark is the second guy from Baltimore. They drafted Kyle Hamilton. They signed Marcus Williams. So you have Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton. They did draft, I believe they drafted 2 corners as well. So for me, Chuck Clark is also going to be on the last year of his deal next year. And I know he probably wants a little bit of a contract extension, a little bit more money, because his deal is very, very favorable.
This makes sense, and let me tell you why. This is a Howie Roseman guy. Just from this perspective, he fills a need.
Mm-hmm.
He's 26.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, he was born in Philadelphia. You do a sign or a trade and sign like they did with AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Figure something out. This is the range of people that Howie likes to go for. You know what I mean? Like mid-20s. This guy could be the next for us Rodney McLeod.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if he comes in and plays 5-6 years here, it is a massive win. Massive. And it's an upgrade at the position as well.
Exactly. And I would absolutely love to have a player of his caliber on this roster, because I think it helps the back end. Like you said, it's that addition that people look at and like, okay, 26, all right, you're getting a younger guy, but it could be that Rodney McLeod Rodney McLeod effect. It could be along the lines of that, and something, I'll take it any day of the week.
One question: he is listed as a strong safety, which is what Anthony Harris plays. So I don't know what they do there. Can they switch? Can Anthony Harris play free safety or
I think
just cut him?
Clark does have a little bit of versatility to him. I don't know the full effect numbers wise in terms of where he played on the field. That I don't know. Let me see. I can see if it gives me a breakdown. So, but like I said, I think that he would be a welcome addition. He knows the city, and this year the Eagles seem to be loving adding some Philadelphia players to the roster. But let me see. Nah, it doesn't show me where his coverage, where he lined up in coverage, and did he play slot and all that kind of stuff. That's something.
Well, then
a little bit of research to see.
For right now, let's just assume that position there between him and Anthony Harris would be nebulous, and that would get sorted out in the preseason, and just say, "Hey, we want you here." So, do you want me to call Baltimore's front office, see what I can work out?
Yeah, you can say what you were. Now, I didn't also in the available. I did not add Earl Thomas because I know he does want to come back and play. He's been out for 2 years. I don't want to go there. So
no.
I didn't add him on the other list. If people were wondering in terms of adding a safety on the lat list, I wasn't doing that.
Good.
Another corner, Greedy Williams, Cleveland. Now this one I felt I shouldn't put on because they also just traded away Troy Hill back to the LA Rams, and you're looking at their depth chart and their cornerback room. I feel he's going to get a lot of playing time because of that. So I think that along the lines is probably not going to happen. Now he's up for a contract extension, so maybe Cleveland does trade him because they don't plan on signing him to a big contract. I don't know that, but as of right now, maybe he's one player I shouldn't have put on the list. Like I said, I don't know.
You never know. It's a possibility.
Next guy, Troy Pride Jr., Carolina. Carolina has a plethora of corners on their roster. And now he did get hurt last year. But again, he may be a guy that they look to deal. I think he was a 5th-round pick in 2020, I believe. So he's a player that maybe you see a younger player with some upside. Cornerback Cam Dantzler, Minnesota. Now he's one of the youngest players. He's only 23. He was drafted 2 years ago. But if you look at Minnesota's depth chart, they have a heck of a lot of players on their they're too deep, basically. If you look at them, and they also, I think they did draft. They drafted Andrew Booth in the 2nd round. So they put some premium picks on defensive backs, which it seems like they do every single year. You can just go down the list of all the corners that they drafted. And but I think Cam Dantzler would be phenomenal to get a young player like that. But again, that would cost you.
Josh Norman is a free agent, by the way.
Oh, don't even. I knew you would do that. So is Richard Sherman. So
I was just about to look him up too.
See, I did it for you.
You remember when everyone thought that Josh Norman was it, and then Carolina just released him, and he just has not been as good since then? So they were right.
They were right, and it was their.
They didn't want to pay him, I think.
Well, he wanted a lot of money. I think. Well, they had the franchise tag on him.
Okay.
So, yeah. On that aspect, I'm gonna say no. He's what, 35 years old?
34.
34. Yeah, close enough. So, next guy, Michael Ojemudia from Denver. Denver's got so many guys, and I feel like Ojemudia gets lost in the shuffle. Former corner from Iowa. our former Iowa corner. Um, Bigger guy. I feel like he would be one of those. I'm not going to say Ronald Darby trades because Ronald Darby was somewhat of an already established name. Ojemudia has like I said has the upside. Um, and then last I have Juan Thornhill from Kansas City. He is going to be due a contract after this year. Uh, they also did just get Lonnie Johnson from Houston, who I think he wants to play corner, but he could fit at safety as well. They just drafted Brian Cook. They just signed Deion Bush. So, there is opportunity there that, maybe if they want Jalen Reagor and Andy Reid thinks he can turn Jalen Reagor around, you can do a Jalen Reagor and a pick for Juan Thornhill. But again, I put this list together just looking at opportunity where a player could be moved because of their roster being or their room that they're in being a little bit crowded. So again, James Bradbury would be the number one in my opinion. If he's cut and released, I think that'd be a perfect 6'1". I think he's like 6'1", 212. Fits perfectly what they want to do. Fits perfectly at him across from Darius Slay. So I think that's pretty tantalizing if you think about that.
Yeah. How do you know? Maybe you said it already. Do you know how old Bradbury is by chance?
Bradbury is 29, I believe.
Okay, so a little younger than Slay because we're gonna have to start thinking about life after Slay really soon.
Again, and you are 100% right on that. And I think Tyler had a comment earlier that I want to bring up because it basically gets you along the lines of that. Right here. 2 first-round picks next year. I'm all in for addressing long-term next year in the secondary. This year, just need some Band-Aids and keep rolling.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but like some of these guys that we're talking about, they could be both. If you think about it, it's one of those things where if we got a Bradbury, he could realistically play here for 3 years, maybe. Chuck Clark could play here for longer. He's a little bit younger. But, this is the year where we're really going to find out what Jalen Hurts is. And if they want to move on and get a quarterback next year, they're going to need those picks because they're not going to be bad enough where they're picking in the top end of the draft. So they'll need that ammunition to move up. So I would like them to really address secondary now as best they can. And honestly, the scenarios that you laid out here, Johnny, I think give you the best bet to do that.
Yeah.
It helps you now, it helps you later. So,
Yeah.
and you know what, even if I think what a lot of people overlook too, if some of these guys come in and they're a 1-year stopgap, what can you teach a Zach McPherson that a coach can't teach, if that makes sense? You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. I'm all about, it's just this, looking at this depth chart, it doesn't do it for me, man, because I get
Tom has a question here for you. What is the pick in UDFA that we like the most? I'll let you go first, and then I'll give you mine.
All right, my favorite draft pick overall. Well, I can't say the pick they didn't make, which was AJ Brown.
Yeah. You can't put that. Now you can make that along the lines if you want to talk about the draft because that was part of that draft night, but he's not the pick. So
all right, I'll tell you my favorite.
I know who it's going to be, but go ahead.
My favorite one's Grant Calcaterra.
Knew it.
I loved his film. He is going to fit into that second tight end mold better. And just look, I love Jack Stoll. I like the story. He seems like a great dude.
He's a great tight end 3.
He really is, and that's what he needed to be. Tyree Jackson coming off that injury.
I think Tyree Jackson starts off on the PUP list.
Probably.
How late he got hurt and everything. He'll start on the PUP list, so he's not even going to be available.
And JJ Arcega-Whiteside, you go on. Got Noah Togiai. Stick Rod's still there. So I love the Calcaterra pick. And my favorite UDFA is Carson Strong, to be honest with you. If he's your long-term backup quarterback here, where he has to come in and start a couple of games, you're good because he doesn't move that great, but he's got a better arm. He's got the best arm on the team, realistically. He's got a freaking cannon. So, yeah, and they what did they promise him? it was a pretty sizable guarantee.
300,000, I believe.
I mean, for UDFA. Now, let's not forget, in case you're wondering why some of these UDFAs are getting so much money, I don't know if you touched on it with Draft Show. Because of COVID, the player pool was significantly bigger this year, almost double than what it has been in years past. So guys like Carson Strong would have gotten drafted. Mario Goodrich would have gotten drafted. Kennedy Brooks would have still been a UDFA. But that being said, there's a lot of these guys that went UDFAs to other teams probably would have gotten picked up in a smaller pool. There's just a lot of talent. So those are my two picks. Also, surprised we didn't address punter yet.
I think it's coming. So there will be competition, I believe. Jimmy likes the running back from Oklahoma, Kennedy Brooks.
He's okay. He's a basic running back, to be honest with you.
My favorite draft pick, I'm going to go with Nakobe Dean because
he slid,
what he brings to the linebacker room and what he can do on the field. It just gives you such a big dynamic in this defense that we haven't seen in years. And I did mention the last linebacker they drafted in the third round with medical red flags was Jeremiah Trotter. So that did work out pretty well for the Eagles. Hopefully this works out. What about
Jordan Hicks? Did he have it? Because he was a third round pick. Did he have any question marks coming in?
I don't know if it was serious medical red flags. Like, because Trotter's knee he would have been a first round pick, they said, but his teams dropped him off the board because they said that he wouldn't last but a couple of years because his knees were bad.
He said, I've never passed a physical in my life.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's with that. Now, my favorite UDFA, I said I like Mario Goodrich a lot, but I'm going to go with a little bit of the return game and Britton Covey.
Yeah,
if you watch him play for Utah, now he's older. He's 25 years old because of his missions he had to do. But again, a dynamic guy that with the ball in his hands, which is what this team needs, and that's a reason that he's one of my favorites because they went out and they got a guy that most likely wasn't going to be drafted because of his age alone.
Yeah,
but he's a player that is very shifty and very quick, has quick bursts. So for me, it's when you can add to the return game that they haven't had in a little bit. I think that's very, very fun. I know Chip's favorite guy is the offensive lineman from San Diego State, Bill Dunkel.
It's because of his name, isn't it?
It's because of the name. It is because of the name. But
it is a very Charles thing to do.
I will say on two of the other undrafted free agents, because after our show, they did sign Jared Williams, who was an offensive tackle from originally was at University of Houston, and he played last year at University of Miami. I believe he did have a pec injury, so it may have been why he slid. 6'6", 320 pounds. And then they did sign Ali Fayyad, which was Western Michigan outside linebacker, defensive end, edge guy. Had 28.5 sacks for them. He played East-West Shrine Bowl, and he's another guy, maybe a guy that you could possibly put in your practice squad, develop a little bit. Remember, Joe Osman is still on the roster. Do not forget about that.
He doesn't even have a number, but
he's still on the roster. But then the other guy, Barrett Brooks, actually messaged me and said that Josh Sills, the former West Virginia, and he played last year at Oklahoma State guard, 6'5", 322. He said that he's a nasty player. So he's a guy, offensive guard. You never know. They may be able to develop him like they're able to develop a guy that they just waived in Nate Herbig, which I'll touch on it real quick there. Unfortunately, I thought they'd be able to trade him for a late round pick. They were not able to, apparently. They do save $2.4 million on the cap with his release. Like I said, they weren't going to pay a ton of money to back up offensive linemen. And you have Isaac Seumalo there, Jack Driscoll. You weren't going to pay $2.4 million for Nate Herbig just to sit on the bench. That's just my opinion on that.
I liked Herbig, liked what he brought to the team. Good luck. Honestly, this is financially the worst decision for him.
Unless somebody picks him up on a waiver claim, then he'll still get that $2.4 million, but it won't be guaranteed. It's non-guaranteed. So,
but they could also not. The only good thing here is we never have to watch Nate Herbig snap a football again.
Thank God. Thank God.
I love the guy. You know, he had that lovable face, the pudgy face and the helmet there. But hey, you know what? For what he was a UDFA as well, I believe.
He was from Stanford.
I like Sua Opeta better. I just think he's a little more athletically gifted than Herbig was. But yeah, good luck, Herbie. And I just brought up Joe Ostman's. You gotta look at his player history, man. Like, all right, he was a free agent in 18. Then they waived him. Practice squad. Free agent. IR. Waived. Practice squad. Activated. Practice squad. Activated. Practice squad. Activated. Free agent. Waived. Injured. Injured reserve.
Yeah, he had that one preseason training camp that he was unblockable, and then he tore his ACL. So
yeah.
Again, also, I want to get your thoughts on this real quick before we wrap it up.
Sure.
Andre Dillard just posted a picture. He's now 325 pounds, looking a little bit bulk. Do you think they move him to guard?
You know, I was actually planning on asking you who you think the starting right guard is. Okay. I know that they were working on cross-training him, I believe, right? Would you rather, if he can cross-train and be competent, would you rather have him or Isaac Seumalo as your starting right guard?
Well, the thing about this is, if Andre Dillard plays right guard, then you have a $5 million player backing up. Now, I know that, okay, well, what if someone gets hurt? Then he's playing. So honestly, I think Seumalo, if healthy, that's the biggest thing with him, because I think he had a Liz Frank injury, which is not something that's going to be – that's never something that's super quick when you heal, especially for a guy who's over 300 pounds.
Exactly.
But the way I look at their depth chart and why Nate Herbig was let go is you have Andre Dillard there. He plays left tackle. Is he going to move, play a little bit of cross-train at guard? You have Sua Opeta. You have Cam Jurgens, who they said they want to try to train as some guard as well. You have Jack Anderson. You have Jack Driscoll. You have LaRaven Clark, who's a backup tackle. You have Coyote Awasika, who they like a lot. Brett Toth. And then you got the undrafted guys in Sills, Williams, and Dunkel. I think when you have a guy like Jeff Stoutland, I think anything is possible in terms of players you pick up.
For sure.
Because he's molded some pretty good players. Some players who you didn't think were going to be great into pretty good players. Brandon Brooks is one. He was a good player in Houston, but turned out to be an absolute stud, absolute great player when Jeff Stoutland got to mold him a little bit. So for me, looking at these players and looking at that right guard spot, I think it's up between Seumalo, Opeta, and Driscoll. And, Driscoll has shown he can't stay healthy the last 2 years, which is unfortunate because
Seumalo, unfortunately.
I think Sua Opeta could win that job. And he didn't play terrible when he was in the game. He played in a few games last year. I think he maybe won him. I would say give Cam Jurgens a spot there as like the fourth guy, as possibly battling that out. But I don't really know. He's never played it before. But I'm going to go with Sua Opeta. He's been on the team for a number of years now. And I think this is a player that Jason Kelsey spoke very highly of recently.
Really.
So he's a player that I could see. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun this offseason. What they still do, the roster is not done where it's only May 4th.
Yep.
And roster is always changing. It's never really set. It's always changing because that's just what it is. So, yeah, we'll see how they go. But I'm just going to shout out a couple of our sponsors, and then we'll get it going. But Statement Games, a fun free twist on fantasy sports. The link is in the bio. AATSportsNetwork.com/shop. Take a look at that. There's some great gear on the website there. Link is in the bio as well. Symbol.com, your stock market for sports. Symbol.com. Use the promo code AATSports when you sign up. Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant, located off the Iroquois Trail in the Old Town Shopping Center in Allentown. Visit them today at www.vinnyspizzapa.com. And Stuff to the Grills, located off the Iroquois Trail in the Old Town Shopping Center as well. www.stufftothegrills.com. Have one for lunch, have one for dinner. Make sure they know that we sent you. That's always appreciated. Triple Threat Bets, TripleThreatWagers.com. So check them out. College basketball season will be right around the corner, so definitely check them out to get all your input and make some money there. But I want to say thanks to Mike for being on here with me. Thank you to everybody commenting. Make sure you go on and subscribe, the YouTube page, the Twitter page, the Instagram, Facebook, all the podcast platforms. Hit us up, leave us some comments, message us. You have questions, anything like that. We appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, if you have an idea, always shoot it our way. We're always listening. So with that, you have anything else, Mike, or?
No, I'm good.
Well, next week is going to be fun because the schedule is released next Thursday. So we may be going on a Thursday show to talk about the schedule, who the Eagles play, when they play. Maybe we'll see Carson Wentz in the first game of the season. We'll find that out next week. How many primetime games will the Eagles have? All those will be answered next
0.
week.
Hopefully 0.
I don't know about that.
I am a cranky old man. I want my 1:00 Sunday games.
You know what? No. I'll take 4:15 games. I like those as well. But
okay, yeah, I like 4:15 games as well. Those are nice.
But again, we can get into this more next week. But with that, I want to just say thanks to everybody, and we're going to end it with a big and happy